Welcome to Take 5 from Cowee Baptist Church. We are looking today at the 11th chapter of the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. And there's a lot happening in this 11th chapter. You see in this chapter that for all the many things that happen on earth, there's many more things happening in heaven, which helps us to realize that we live on a much bigger stage than we realize, with much grander plans even than we realize, because God is in control, fully in control. In the first two verses of chapter 11, we see that John is told to measure the temple of God in heaven. He is measuring the temple of God. He's given a reed, a measuring rod, and he was told to measure the temple, the altar, and to count the number of worshipers there. And I think that's to emphasize the fact that God's presence is with his people on earth, and of course in fullness in heaven. And he is concerned about and thinking of each and every worshiper. So the Lord is just as much with us here as he will be with us in heaven. John is busy about measuring the temple when very quickly and immediately the focus changes, and we are seeing the account of the two witnesses. It says in chapter 11, verse 3, it says, "I will give power to my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth." Now, these are two mysterious preachers who suddenly appear as this temple is being measured. And their identity is not completely clear. And we are simply told that they are there to witness, to give witness to what God tells them to say. And the fact that they are not named, maybe we're just supposed to know them as the two witnesses. But there's, of course, been much speculation about who these may be, what their identity is. And it actually becomes pretty clear. Most of the interpreters seem to think that one of the witnesses is probably Elijah, because it talks about the fact that these witnesses can call down fire from heaven, and they can shut up the sky so that it will not rain. And it talks about the wonders that they are able to do. If one of them is Elijah, then most certainly the other is Moses. Both Elijah and Moses, their graves are not still with us, because that was hidden from us. And Elijah indeed was translated into heaven. Moses was the supreme lawgiver, and Elijah was Israel's quintessential prophet. And the two of them appeared with Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. And perhaps they even talked with Jesus at that time about the fact that they would be the two witnesses during this grand time in history. Since both Moses and Elijah had no known grave, and both are mentioned in the closing verses of the last book of the Old Testament in Malachi 4, then we imagine that most likely those are the two who are in the task of witnessing. But more important than the identity of these two preachers is their mission. Their message is one of warning, of condemnation even, and testimony and prophecy. And it's accentuated by the wonders that they can perform. And it's certainly possible that these two witnesses are directly responsible for the conversion and maybe the training of the 144,000 evangelists that we will see coming up. But their preaching was met with hard-hearted rejection and, in fact, hatred. And at that time, this coming time in history, Jerusalem had become a very corrupt city. And Revelation relates the fact that an earthquake destroyed a tenth of the city not long after this. But before Jerusalem is punished in that manner, it says that the two witnesses enjoy great success in their witnessing adventures, and their testimony is effective. But then at about a midway point, the beast appears, a beast from the abyss, who is most certainly the Antichrist, and he emerges to overwhelm those two, and in fact to kill them. And what takes place then is that there is in Jerusalem, which is referred to in Revelation as Sodom and Egypt, and there is a celebration in which they have like a holiday because these two evangelists were killed. The city's inhabitants exchanged gifts and threw parties and gloated over the dead bodies of these two witnesses. But this celebration is short-lived, because after 3.5 days, the two witnesses are resuscitated in plain view, and they are called up to heaven, and they ascend to heaven. And this dramatic event, coupled with that earthquake which followed, strikes the population with great fear. Now, in the chronology of Revelation, what happens at this point is that the second woe, the sixth trumpet, is now ended. And in verse 15 of this 11th chapter, this is the seventh trumpet of the third woe. And the seventh angel sounds his trumpet in the 15th verse of chapter 11. Now we hear this seventh trumpet. There's already been the scroll eating scene in chapter 10, and then in 11, the temple measuring, the ministry of those two super witnesses, and then here between the sixth and the seventh trumpet, there is an interlude to prepare us for what will follow. And events which will follow are not very pleasant events. They are about judgment, and they are about terrors. And so this interlude here gives encouragement to the believers. And we're actually, it seems, allowed to eavesdrop on another heavenly celebration. God's kingdom reclamation is anticipated in the worship which occupies the remainder of this chapter 11. Before Satan and Antichrist and false prophets are revealed and unleashed on the earth in their fury, we are treated to an assurance here in chapter 11 that God is still in control. God is still in control. In spite of what is happening, in spite of what will happen, we are assured that heaven knows the ultimate outcome. And we must therefore be aware that what's going on there is for our good. And we meet next some mysterious heavenly beings who are intent on singing Christ's praises. It says, and there were loud voices in heaven, which says, the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. And these verses are included in Handel's Messiah. And their theme of those whose voices, loud voices we hear, their theme is that Christ will reign forever. And to them, in fact, that fact is a foregone conclusion, and that destiny is clearly in their view. And then we have Again, we see 24 elders. The 24 elders who were seated on their thrones before God fall on their faces and worship God, and that they give a grand psalm of thanksgiving, and they speak some of the judgments that are coming, and it's a grand scene of worship and wonder in heaven. And I think that what this is telling us is that there is, yes, trials and conflicts yet to be experienced. And indeed, the most severe sufferings recorded are soon to be unleashed in Revelation. The 7 bowls of wrath are to be spilled out on the earth. And the evil triumvirate of the devil and the Antichrist and the beast or the false prophet are soon to be unleashed. But what this chapter 11 says is that in the course of all of this, it is as nothing in the final analysis to the believer. Whatever suffering must be endured is of little consequence compared to the glory to be gained. Whatever suffering is to be endured is of little consequence compared to the glory that will be revealed and that will be gained. In Revelation, God's victory is proclaimed before the evil attacks are even taking place. And in this way, it keeps us alert to the fact that we already know who is going to triumph. We know. And in the last verse of chapter 11, it says, "Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and within his temple was seen the Ark of the Covenant. And there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, as earthquake and a great hailstorm." So we end chapter 11 as it started, thinking about the significance of the temple. And we glimpse the Ark of the Covenant in the temple, reminding everyone that God's promises are not forgotten. So the revelation continues to unfold with all that is told through the witnesses, through the voices, through the 24 elders. And as always, it's an assurance. It's an assurance that God is now, always has been, and forever will be fully in control. May God bless you with that eternal truth